Hello everybody. This is Andrew with Lucid Dream Infinity here. I wanted to do a video today on the origins of lucid dreaming, where lucid dreaming comes from, as well as sort of exploring the modern phenomenon that it is today and that it has become. I like to start all of my videos with a quick explanation of what lucid dreaming is, in case somebody stumbles upon this video and they haven't heard of lucid dreaming before. Lucid dreaming is when you are asleep and you're in a dream and you look around and have the realization that you are asleep and dreaming. So it's an awareness that you are having a dream while a dream is occurring, while a dream is happening. And of course, at that point, it becomes possible to do all sorts of different things. If you want to fly, you can fly. If you want to carry out an experiment, you can experiment with different things. So that's what lucid dreaming is. Alright, so getting started with some of the history and some of the origins of lucid dreaming, which is quite interesting and fascinating. Lucid dreaming actually originated in Tibet. There was a very famous Tibetan guru by the name of Padmasambhava, or as he's more commonly known, Guru Rinpoche. And he was a spiritual master, a guru in Tibet, and scholars believe that he lived somewhere between the 4th and 7th centuries AD, so after the death of Christ. And his teachings on lucid dreaming are generally referred to as dream yoga. And they were sort of, my discovery of this occurred when I read a book called Natural Liberation, which was translated from Tibetan into English by a scholar named Alan Wallace. And you can go online and find that on Amazon. It's called Natural Liberation. And so in that book, Guru Rinpoche or Padmasambhava talks a lot about using the lucid dream state, or as he translates it, as he calls it, apprehending the dream state. So lucid dreaming, or apprehending the dream state, is treated within Tibetan Buddhism and specifically by Guru Rinpoche as a method, or as a technique that we can use for realizing profound spiritual truths or profound spiritual insights. And in fact, that's what lucid dreaming was actually used for when it was originally practiced by the Tibetans, roughly 2,000 years ago or so. That's what it was viewed at. It was viewed as a vehicle for enlightenment, to sort of realize these, like I said, profound spiritual truths about ourselves and about the universe. And it was sort of perceived as being very powerful and a very potent technique for actualizing one's spiritual evolution and sort of bringing one's consciousness and one's awareness and one's self-cognizance up to a sort of more enlightened level, up onto a more subtle level in terms of understanding and those sorts of things. So that's sort of the origin of lucid dreaming and where it originally comes from in terms of the very first awareness, or the first sort of texts about lucid dreaming. The first writings of lucid dreaming come from this guy Padmasambhava from Tibet around the 4th to 7th century after the death of Christ. So that's a little bit of the history of lucid dreaming in terms of where it comes from, and now to sort of shift into modern times. The first usage of the term lucid dreaming comes from an essay written by a guy named Van Eden. Van Eden, Frederick Van Eden, I believe, wrote a famous essay. If you go onto Google, Google that name, and I'm sure that you'll find the essay. It'll come up right away. So that was sort of the first time that we have the phrase lucid dreaming, and it occurred in an essay that he wrote. I'm going to try to pull it up right now. I'm going to do a search, Frederick Van Eden. Here we go, lucid dreaming. Comes right up. Frederick Van Eden, E-E-D-E-N. And he wrote a very famous essay called A Study of Dreams. That's what it was. It was a study of dreams where he sort of analyzed his own dreams and talked about being in a lucid dream. So that's sort of the beginning of when Western civilization, or the Western Hemisphere, began to develop an awareness of lucid dreaming and that this is possible. So it had been around in Tibet as a practice for about 2,000 years before we began to cultivate any awareness of it at all in Western civilization. And so after Van Eden came along, of course, not long after that, or basically around the same period of time, is when Freud came along and wrote his famous his famous writings about dreams and dreaming. But it wasn't there really wasn't much interest in lucid dreaming specifically until a man named Stephen LaBerge came along and sort of conducted his own studies of lucid dreaming. And his sort of conundrum, the problem that he faced, was that he sort of knew that lucid dreaming was possible because he had done it himself, but it wasn't really accepted as a legitimate idea or as a legitimate area of inquiry within the cognitive science and the sort of psychological community at that time. In fact, the idea was sort of shunned as being impossible, right? That's kind of an oxymoron. How can you be aware when you're asleep and in a dream? How can you dream consciously when you're unconscious, right? So most people sort of thought that it was absurd and that you couldn't do it and that it was an impossible thing. And so it was sort of in the face of this skepticism that LaBerge went about empirically proving that lucid dreaming is a real phenomenon and that this is a real thing. And I'm going to put a link in the comment section here to the original study that he published in the peer-reviewed scientific journal, where he published his study on lucid dreaming, proving that it's an empirically possible phenomenon. And he did this by means of eye motions. He discovered that your eyes are sort of a unique kind of sight. Your eyes, the motion of your eyes in your dream body, are reflected by the motion of your eyes in your actual physical body. So what this means is that if I'm in a dream and I move my eyes, let's say to the left 3 times, 1, 2, 3, that motion is going to be reflected in my eyes of my physical body, of my actual physical body. So the way that you move your eyes in your dreams is precisely mirrored by the way that you move your eyes in your actual physical body. So LaBerge figured this out, and what he did was they arranged a series of signals for the person who was lucid dreaming and the person who was observing them, and of course they were measuring the brain waves of the person, right, with I believe it was an EEG machine. So they knew that the person was asleep. There's no faking the sort of brain waves that occur when we're sleeping. So they had that recorded on the EEG machine, and then they hooked sensors up to the eyelids. And so as the person became lucid, they signaled these agreed upon eye motions while they were asleep, and thus proved that lucid dreaming is a real sort of phenomenon. And he did this at Stanford University, at the sleep laboratory at Stanford, and thus ending the sort of cynical, skeptical kind of, questioning of, is lucid dreaming a real thing? Is it something that you can really do? So this was all relatively modern. I mean, where that was roughly 33 years ago that happened. And so since then, there's sort of been more and more interest in this phenomenon. And, I hope that it continues to grow, and that, people sort of begin to realize just the sort of infinite number of applications that lucid dreaming has. And that's something that I touch on in my other videos. Alright, so we're getting to the 10-minute mark here, I see. So that's it for this video. I hope that it was helpful and helped to sort of illuminate some of the history of lucid dreaming and how we've sort of gotten to where we are today with it. And okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.